What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in episode 3. Ouch. We are here, guys. Bad Blood coming up this Saturday. I know we haven't seen SmackDown yet, obviously, so some things might change from our opinions today, but this is being recorded on a Wednesday because it worked out best for our schedule. So, without further ado, I will bring in the boys. So we got Tomlin, we got Nick in the house. You guys want to say hello? What's up?
What up?
I put this on the script this time, but this is actually a question that I kind of probably should have asked the first time we went around. But when did you guys start watching wrestling, and what is your relationship with wrestling? What does it mean to you in your life, I guess? Nick, would you like to go first?
I say this all the time. Tomlin knows this for a fact that I fell in love with wrestling first watching Triple H in the early to late 2000s. The first match that I ever watched was Triple H and HBK at the Rumble in 04. And ever since then, I've been pretty hooked. Mostly on Triple H and Shawn Michaels for the most part growing up. I actually watched that first match with my dad because I couldn't sleep when he was watching that pay-per-view. So he kept me up to watch the rest of that match, then I went back to sleep. And it's been a crazy ride ever since. I've been watching pretty steadily over the years.
All right, Tom, would you like to tell your story?
So I don't know when I actually started watching. I was very, very, very little. I don't know, 2, 3. I do remember Logan turning heel when I was a little kid. So it was around 96 when I started watching. I've watched pretty much nonstop my whole life. I have way more knowledge of wrestling than a human being should probably have that doesn't do it for a living.
Super fan.
If only.
Definitely a super fan. I have watched every episode of Raw, every episode of SmackDown. I've spent countless hours on the network over the last 10 years since it came out. I quit watching wrestling for maybe a year or two, a senior year of high school. And while I was in the Marines in the dorms, there wasn't shit to do. So I bought a bunch of wrestling DVDs and started watching those, and that's how I got back into it. And that was like 2012 when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched, full time ever since then. So other than a year in high school, I've watched it full time my entire life.
I think I might have told this story in my chat once or twice before, but I don't know if Tom, I don't think you've heard this story. Nick, I'm not sure if you have either, but when I was a kid, I was never allowed to watch wrestling. And I'm assuming this was all kind of because Attitude Era stuff was going on. I was aware that Hogan was a thing, but never watched. And then my neighbor, I used to go over to his house all the time. We play video games. We were just kids being kids, but his dad would watch wrestling. And so every now and again, I'd catch little bits and pieces of the pay-per-views, but I didn't really know what was going on, obviously. But I knew that's how I picked up of Bret Hart was, who Shawn Michaels was. And so that's kind of the way they became my favorites, because we couldn't even have toys or anything like that. So I would have to play the wrestling on Nintendo over at my friend's house. And so I didn't watch until it was 2006. I actually went out for track. So I met this kid. He was a freshman. He was a hardcore wrestling fan, and he did the you can't see me, and people were laughing at him and not with him, and it really kind of pissed me off. And one of my friends was one of the guys doing it too, so I was like, dude, that's not cool. And it wasn't he was a good athlete either. He just kind of, I think, needed something to do after school. And so I started kind of watching wrestling on my own at first, just so I had things to talk about with him and could be friends. And then eventually a couple of us got together and we're watching wrestling on a regular basis, just basically Raw every week. And so it became the thing to do after school on Mondays. We would just watch stuff, and we'd get together and watch the PLEs as well. And then eventually we were like, why don't we just invite him over? It's basically just a bunch of dudes hanging out watching wrestling. It's not too hardcore. It's just kind of casual. I was probably the only one that was watching to learn stuff, because I didn't know much about it, where everyone else was kind of oh yeah, that's Triple H. Oh yeah, that's Batista. No biggie.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, this guy's pretty good. Who's this guy? Learning stuff. And yeah, eventually that led to, I got way more into it than I probably should have, and met Sam and Lincoln, which some of you know who Sam is because he's been around for the Shots at the Rumble events and stuff like that. He's one of my boys. And that's where, we ended up creating Shots at the Rumbles when I was in college in I don't know, 2009, 2010. And that's also
crazy.
That's also when I started the initial fantasy league stuff was with those guys, and then a couple of guys that. Well, I think once they realized that I was like into wrestling, they were like, "What? You're such a baseball guy. I always remember you as like a jock. Like you would never watch wrestling." And more that I got into it, like, this is kind of why I asked like your relationship with it. Like, would you guys consider yourselves hardcore wrestling fans? Like, if you miss a
Yes.
show, do you like
Yeah.
kind of get upset?
Yes.
No, I don't
Okay.
get upset,
Definitely.
but I go back and watch it though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I get upset. I would go back and watch it just like Tomlin said, but like it would feel like there's a piece of me that's missing, and I wouldn't be upset. I'd just be a little bit anxious and stressed.
Because I definitely feel like it's gotten to the point where it's just part of your like daily life. I don't know. It's like your favorite show, or it's like for like the sports people, it's like, well, if I didn't get my Sports Center back in the day, like I just felt like I was forgetting something. I was missing out on something. You know, the FOMO and everything. And I don't consider myself a hardcore fan because I feel like the more I try to know everything, the less and less I enjoy it. That's kind of why I ended up like stopping the fantasy wrestling thing for a while, was because we jumped into the dirt sheets too much, and the all these people trying to get insider stuff, that instead of being like excited that like somebody returned or somebody showed up and was like genuinely surprised, it was like, oh yeah, I called it. Like it just kind of came like a dick measuring thing. And then like when it didn't happen, it was like you were just mad. You were disappointed. I feel like I'm just getting frustrated and not enjoying the shows anymore. So for me, I want to know what's going on, but I don't want to know too much. And I almost think that's why like some of us have that appreciation of like the independent shows, is because like we don't really know much about these guys, or maybe we've seen them somewhere, but like we don't really connect any storylines to this indie show or whatever. So we can just kind of like anything that happens, it's just like a shock and awe, and it's just super fun because you have no outsider information on it.
That's why I love my local indie stuff. It's not like, I shouldn't say mainstream indie, because there are popular indie stuff that some wrestling fans would know, but like this is very like just local. I don't know any of the storylines that go on whenever I go. I just go to have a good time and just, cheer and boo whenever I need to, and just, have a good time, man. I feel the exact same way about like that kind of stuff.
Like I know we've talked about New Japan and like people on the indies that are well known or well regarded or whatever. And I know people are always like, "Oh, I'll send you some tapes, you can watch them," or "Let me send you this or that, and you can watch them." And I'm kind of like, if they show up on Raw or NXT, I want to generally be like, "Oh," and have like an open mind of like what they can become, and not be like, "Oh, I already know who this is. They're gonna do this, and have my opinions already made." Because I feel like, like I kind of Cody Rhodes, but not really. But like certain stars might get booked a certain way on the indies or a certain show, like in New Japan or whatever. But then like if they come to W, it's like a fresh coat of paint, and it could be a completely new like character. We have no idea. So like maybe they were once a high flyer, and now coming here they put on 50 pounds and they want to be more of a ground and pound character or whatever. Like, it's that fine line of like, I want to be aware of certain things, but I don't want to know too much, so I can just enjoy shows.
That's completely fair.
Like, do you guys?
I feel like a lot of people are the exact same way too.
Like, do you guys ever feel that you guys get to that point where you're kind of like, everyone's excited for something, and then you're like, oh, but I heard Joe Blow said this was supposed to happen, it didn't happen, and now I'm disappointed.
See, that's where I'll listen to the dirt sheets and stuff, but until I see it, obviously I'm not going to believe it. So like Cash in Berlin, for example, when we did this show before that PLE, like we talked about a shit ton of returns, a shit ton of debuts and stuff like that. Like I can't even remember how many different scenarios we brought up during that show that we could see happening at Bash in Berlin. But whenever the show was happening, I loved the show. I wasn't disappointed or anything like that. So like, I feel like I can disassociate from those feelings, unlike most people.
Yeah.
Where like I can still sit and enjoy the show and not be disappointed. But that's a big problem with a lot of people nowadays.
Yeah, so you definitely can kind of define that line then.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I agree.
We're moving on to that one thing. Nick, I'll go ahead and let you go first.
Well, ever since you dropped the script for us the other day, I was trying to think of some different things, because there's a lot of things, not even just WWE, since I know that we're mostly covering like WWE PLEs and stuff like that. and like I was trying to like venture different things going on in other companies, but I did eventually venture back to NXT, and that is how they're booking Obafemi and how much of a beast he is. And I think you guys would definitely both agree with me here. His mic work is fucking phenomenal. He's got a great character. Like he's not super heel, but he's not also babyface. He's like in the middle, in between. I absolutely love it because the crowd will cheer for him. The crowd could boo for him. He really knows how to work a crowd. He's physically amazing in the ring, and just I'm really enjoying his character and the story that they're doing with Tony D'Angelo and the family in NXT right now. And a lot of people have been saying that Tony D is going to beat him, but I think they're just building up Obafemi to become even more of a monster than he already is. And I just have a lot of appreciation for his booking in NXT because there are a lot of wrestlers nowadays. Braun Breaker, for example, we had talked about this before the SummerSlam PLE, that Braun Breaker losing at Money in the Bank, like I can't remember who said it, but someone said that losing at Money in the Bank to Sami Zayn was a good thing because they wanted to like give Braun the loss early so that he can continue to dominate and not have that stigma on his resume. But with Obafemi, there's like no losses on the horizon at all. He hasn't lost a match since he's debuted on NXT Level Up back in January and won the breakout tournament and everything after. I can really appreciate what they're doing with the push and just make him continuously look strong.
What was the last NXT PLE or whatever? Because didn't they? Wasn't it the Dawn versus Oba?
At NXT No Mercy, yeah.
Okay, because yeah, I was actually, I think I saw that one, and I was actually kind of shocked, like how well that the Dawn actually like looked against him. Like, because yeah, I
they
agree with you.
complemented each other very well.
Because like I do agree with you. I feel like Oba's been booked super strong. I do thoroughly enjoy watching him, and I'm huge on him right now as well. I honestly, just because I don't watch NXT as much as probably you guys do, I haven't really heard him talk too much. I did catch the thing on Tuesday or whatever, where I was kind of like, okay, he can hold his own. He's not bad. Like, so yeah, I'm on board with you on the Oba thing. Is there any chance in the future that he gets a call up soon or no?
I think I've been saying this for a while now. I think he's going to be double champ eventually. He won the championship in February last year, so he's going to hold the NXT North American Championship for a full calendar year. And since Trick just won the championship back, I could actually see Trick holding it till maybe around that time, or maybe Stand and Deliver. I could see Obafemi having both those championships after Stand and Deliver next year.
Tomlin, would you like that or no?
I think that's probably what's going to happen.
And then have Trick go up to the main roster, have Obafemi just continue to dominate in NXT until like they build up that next underdog just like Trick.
Do you think we have anybody in the roster right now they're like waiting to debut or build up to be that guy that takes the titles off Oba? Is he even signed yet?
Not even close. Not even close.
No one I could think of.
No.
Okay. I guess
Not at all.
I guess that's a good problem to have later down the road anyway, Go have matches, go tell stories, see what happens.
Absolutely.
All right, Tomlin, what's your one thing?
I mean, I wouldn't really single anything out as a good thing necessarily. I mean, the whole product's pretty good. There's nothing that really stands out to me right now other than like Roman. I think there's a lot of people that, and more so in NXT, that people think are acting like they're big superstars that I think are going to completely flop on the main roster.
Like who? I know people have mentioned
like
the Don.
Like Roxanne Perez, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've never once heard her cut a good promo ever, not one time.
And I know you said Chase U as well.
I like Chase U. I like Chase U a lot, but they're never going to work on the main roster. There's just no way. There's just no way, bro. Like, and I actually like Chase U. I think they're really entertaining, but there's no way it would never work.
Let me ask you this, guys. Let me ask you this.
Roxanne, it would be the one. If I could get rid of somebody from the roster, it would be Roxanne Perez.
Let me ask you this about Chase U. Are they a new age Spirit Squad?
No, Spirit Squad was way more over.
Oh, I mean, Spirit Squad was basically just like silly jobbers on the main roster. Do you think Chase could?
Oh, they were.
Do you think Chase U would be that?
No, I think they were more They were a lot bigger. I think they were more believable, and also those guys were all like super legitimate, like athletic backgrounds. Whereas like they're like cheerleaders, which is like they're not really like a school. They're just cheerleaders who are all generally athletes. Whereas Chase U is actually supposed to be like a school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're as believable. And also they just don't have the same kind of heat, bro. Like you know, and back in the we'll see how things go on Netflix. Things might change, but just being real, in that time period, we were still in a time period where you could kind of play on homophobia and things like that, and you can't
Mhm.
really do that anymore.
Yeah.
And back then, and I'm just calling a spade here, like back in those days, if male cheerleaders were kind of associated with, I mean, you know, we're all old
Yeah.
enough to, you know, remember what it was like, you know, how.
Mm.
So I think they played off of that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Goldust did the same thing. You know what I mean?
I feel like it was such an
Gold-
easy heat magnet back then too.
Exactly, and it worked for Goldust when he came in because it just makes people feel uncomfortable, bro, and it works.
He
dude.
did.
Like,
I remember watching him as a kid, and I was like, this is so weird. I'm so creeped out by this because like I just didn't understand what was going on.
yeah, they knew what they were doing with Goldust. They knew that there were a lot of people that weren't into that type of lifestyle or comfortable with it, and they knew what they were doing.
I do
Yeah,
Spirit
agree.
Squad's a similar type of thing.
I totally agree with you on the Chase U thing too. Like it fits in NXT, it makes sense in NXT. It's fine there. But yeah, I feel like if you brought it up to one of the main rosters, unless they're like one of those like truth funny segments, they're always in the back somewhere, like, and then it's just kind of comedy stuff. If they bring them up to the main roster, I feel like they'll just be kind of the same thing as the Spirit Squad. Like I think was it Thea Hall, right? That's in it. Every time I see her, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen Californication. I'm sure most of you haven't or might be a little too young or whatever, but if you ever watched that show, later on in the season, the main guy goes to rehab, and there's this one chick who's in rehab that's like addicted to cocaine or something like that, and she's always like,
God, I know where this is going.
yeah, she's always like tweaking out and like moving and super excited and everything. And every time I see Thea Hall, I think of this same chick, and it looks just like her too. In the edited version, I'll try to find a photo, and you guys can do the comparison. But like, it's not a good thing. We've had conversations offline or whatever where I'm like, look, you can be a great wrestler, but I need some story, I need some character. And I feel like her just entire character with Chase U is just like, I get you're kind of trying to be exciting and whatever, but I'm just like, you're kind of too much. You're kind of like, are you okay? Are you on cocaine? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, like she's always screaming, and I like Chase U too, but I think they would do a lot better in the main roster apart, especially Duke Hudson.
Duke Hudson's the only one of them that has a future.
I think Duke Hudson could be an insane talent for WWE on the main roster.
Andre Chase might be a manager or something.
Yeah,
you can see that. Yeah,
bro.
I think Thea would be good on her own too.
I'm bigger than he is, bro. I'm not asking for every wrestler to be a fucking to be Scott Steiner or to be Sid Vicious, but like at least be bigger than me, bro. Be bigger than the fucking random dude I see at the gym every morning, right? Like that's all I'm asking.
I do actually look at Chase, and I'm like, okay, he does look like one of my professors. Like he looks like he'd be a teacher. I don't know if he is or was at one point, but I'm like, okay, but I don't know.
No idea.
If anything, I was actually shocked at what he could do in the ring. Like I kind of just assumed he was going to be a manager type, and like be the speaker of like he had his faction or whatever. I just assumed he was the talker. So then when I saw him in a tag team, I was like, oh wait, he actually wrestles. Like I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, and he can do some good shit in the ring too. Like I've seen him live, and they deliver in the ring. It's just the gimmick. I don't know if the gimmick would work on the main roster. That I feel like they'd have to be paired up with like Alpha Academy or something like that, or like R-Truth. I don't know.
Yeah, and in Alpha Academy again, it's like the same thing. We've already seen how Chase U works. They had to take Chad Gable out of it and give him a whole new group because they knew that he was never going to be taken seriously in a comedy group like Alpha Academy.
Yeah,
that's why they did that.
Yeah, and good.
And we haven't seen Alpha Academy on TV as well. If you guys haven't noticed, we haven't seen them on TV for like a month and a half.
Yeah, because the only reason anyone cared about him was because of Chad Gable.
And then the feud that followed, but never actually happened.
I think it was the first episode that I had mentioned, like that one scene where it was like the Otis Chad breakup or whatever, and I was like, no, I wanted to see him fight, and we were kind of like, oh, it's coming down the road, and I was like, but is it going to be too late at this point? And I think we're already past that. It's too late at this point. He's moved on.
Well, I just don't think they care at this point. I don't think they're planning on doing it. So.
I just feel like it was like we got that tease, we got that little build up for, you know, like to me this was like a small program on the side where it was like just give us the Otis attacks and throws him through a table and then be done with it, and then they can go separate or whatever. And we didn't really even get that. We got like, did he throw his T-shirt at him or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, we never got anything from Gable and Otis.
We never got the payoff.
I could honestly see Otis attacking Chad Gable like during a match or something if he's going for a championship to kind of like reignite it and just be like, hey, you're not doing this because you were a fucking asshole to us, and you always thought that you needed a group to be behind you. You have this new group, and we're not going to let it stand. And then Otis goes after Gable again. I could see something like that maybe happening, just being pissed off at Gable, like because he was so close. Just something like that happening.
I'll say this is the last thing I'll kind of say on the Chase U thing, which also I guess kind of could apply to this a little bit. The Chase U people kind of like were brought up individually and did their own thing and like somewhat got over in their own way. You know, did their thing for a year, 2 years, and then they kind of re-brought up Chase U, you know, like that's, I feel like the only way that it would work is if they got themselves over individually first and then got together for this group. You know what I mean?
Slow burn, yeah.
I think it could work if they all took time off, split up, got whole new gimmicks, and did a bunch of steroids. Then maybe at that point I can take them seriously, but I don't think that'll happen.
Minus the steroids,
Andre
yes.
Chase, next time you see him, is going to be popping through his sweater.
There are some guys that like they have, you know, maybe they're good on the mic and like they're in a decent storyline, but you just don't quite believe them. You know, like they're just not quite big. I like Sami Zayn. I remember, like, for example, when he was really over, there were a lot of people that wanted him to beat Roman at Elimination Chamber, which I think is hilarious. You know, that's another discussion. But I remember watching that match with my roommate, and they showed Sami and Roman like standing next to each other, you know, and Roman's like 3 times the size, like their arms, you know, and I was like, man, no disrespect to Sami, but like, come on, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, dude.
I do.
Like, how is this even a competitive fight, bro? I have you know, common sense and intelligence. Like, so my whole thing is I don't like my intelligence to be insulted. Like, so if you're gonna book Adam Cole to beat up like fucking Bobby Lashley in a match, like, bro, I'm not dumb enough to believe that. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna. I just don't. I am just like, no way, bro. No fucking way.
For me, there's got to be.
I don't know.
There's got to be cheating, or there's got to be chair shots or something, and even then, it's like there's got to be like a passed out submission, you know. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
There's
like
exceptions to the rule, like Rey Mysterio or Daniel Bryan or something. But like even Kofi, for example, I remember saying when Kofi won the title, I was actually cool with it, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, I thought you'd hate it." I'd be like, "Well, here's the thing, though. He's winning the title from Daniel Bryan. That's not crazy. But like if Brock Lesnar was the champ, like Kofi's not gonna touch Brock, and Vince obviously agreed with me because of how they took the belt off of Kofi. You know, like you're already accepting the fact that this isn't real, and you're accepting the fact that there's things that you know logically are really dumb that you're gonna see that you just have to kind of accept because you're suspending your disbelief because you know what pro wrestling is. There are some things that I can't do that with though. Like you can only push that so far. Is the thing.
I agree.
I do think they did a great job of making the fans believe that Sami had a chance, though, and like, and the stuff lined up perfectly where it was like in Montreal or wherever in his home country, hometown or whatever. So like, it made the fans get even more behind him because it was like, oh, that's our guy. If anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be him. And you know, oh, he worked with them. He's got the insider. He knows how. Like, they did a great job of putting that together.
Yeah, that crowd was fucking nuts.
Yeah, that was great.
And that's why I haven't had any problem, even though I didn't really necessarily like when Sami beat Braun the first time, or Gunther, but I didn't really have a problem with it because they've literally told us in kayfabe that he is like he's literally good enough to beat Roman. Like he quite literally got a 3 count on Roman and the ref was down.
Yep.
Like, so they've literally said like in storyline that Sami is like that level of a competitor. So. And I don't know. I think it's all right to have like maybe like 1 or maybe even 2 guys that are, you know, smaller guys that are, because I mean that happens like, you know, in pro sports you see like in baseball you got Altuve who, he's like way smaller than everybody else, but he still, is really effective.
Yeah.
There are exceptions to even the NFL, right? Like quarterbacks, right? Nick, you've heard me say I don't like small quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they usually don't work out. But there is like your Russell Wilsons and your Drew Brees, where like
Oh, yeah.
every now and then you will get one that is able to make it work. But it's most of the time it doesn't.
Mhm.
So like Sami Zayn works, but most of the time a guy his size, it's gonna be a hard sell to make him a main eventer.
I am kind of glad
Absolutely.
that they have booked him like you were saying with Roman and making him believable, and the fact that he did like get Gunther and he did pin Braun, because I really get tired of having the same Sammy types where it's like, oh, it's always the underdog. Oh, they got to pull a miracle out to win. I get it if he's smaller and slower and whatever, but it's just like, no, dude can wrestle. He can go. Like, make him. If he's going to hold a title, he needs to be somewhat believable that every match is not just simply like, he's the underdog. Everything's got to go right for him to win. Like, no, don't do that.
I think that's what rubbed people the wrong way with Cena, is they were pushing him as the underdog forever. Eventually, it was like, dude, he's won the main event like 5 times, dude. Like,
Yeah.
what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
It's like the Chiefs, bro. Like, Chiefs fans still try to act like they're underdogs or something. Like, you guys have won like 3 of the last 5 titles, bro. Like, you guys are literally the favorites.
Go ahead.
So I was talking about this to my buddy the other day. We were talking about like the top, or who the GOAT is, right? And my buddy goes, and he made it a point I thought of. He goes, well, really? He goes, to me, he goes, the GOAT in wrestling, like in other sports, we can have like objective metrics, right? Like in baseball,
Yeah, like stats.
like it's obviously Barry Bonds. Like in football, it's obviously Tom Brady. Like in basketball, it's a debate, but it's between 2 guys, right? I mean, pretty much.
And you have numbers to back up whatever your point is. Yeah.
In pro wrestling, if we were to go ask 100, let's just assume on the street, let's assume everyone in the world's a pro wrestling fan. You go on the street, ask 100 people, you're going to get a lot of different answers as to who the GOAT is, right? Like a lot of people are going to say Ric Flair is probably the most common answer you're going to get, but like I would say like Triple H, like some people would say
Hulk Hogan, Stone
Cold.
Rock.
When you thought wrestling was real, right? When you were a kid and you thought it was real, who were the guys that you really fucking cared about? Like, who did you think were the best? And I said, for me, without even thinking about it, Rob Van Dam, Jeff Hardy, and The Rock. And he goes, well, that's the GOAT to you, then, those 3 guys. And I was like, oh, well, fair enough.
Yeah, I feel like if
like
you can bring in stats, I guess, to that and be objective, but it really just comes down to like titles. But then it's like, Cena's got 16 or whatever. We'll just say Joe Smith over here has got 10 titles, but if all of his title reigns are like 2 months and they're like kind of shitty or whatever, and then you have another guy over here who he's had 2 title reigns, but they're like 2.5 years each. It's like, well, are we counting the days? Are we counting the amount of times they won the title? To me, the GOATs in wrestling is, it's very subjective. And
I do agree with Kevin Nash's take. He goes, the only metric, he's like, and he goes, fans don't like to hear this, but the only metric that really matters is money.
Yeah, money and ratings. Like,
he's like, and he said, so as far as I'm concerned, he goes, Hulk Hogan's the best. He's like, but he's like, I was like, if you're going off money, I think it has to be Hogan. Like, I know the Attitude Era was a bigger era, but they had the Rock was like equal standing. Hogan was full on like the draw, like the in the 80s. It was all about Hogan, bro. Like, don't get me wrong, Randy Savage and they had other guys, but none of those guys were drawn like the Rock was. Like Hogan was it was like Hogan was on his own. And the other argument I have for Hogan is that his run, Austin's run, only lasted like 4 or 5 years on top. It wasn't very long.
Oh, like his
Hogan
prime.
was on top for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And
97 to like 2003.
I think when those documentaries and stuff like that, they're always like, oh, well, that's the moment. It's like, I don't think there's ever one moment.
No.
I always think like small little things lead up to it, and then they kind of have that like breakthrough moment, I guess. But then it's still like, but they got to follow up with it the next few weeks to fully get over.
Hogan's heel turn caused the WCW boom, and then the screw job caused the WWF boom.
The snowball effect.
The moment for Austin is WrestleMania 13, though. I don't think that's the moment where he full on turned face and everyone in the crowd was like, yeah, we love this guy. I think right there was the moment where they knew, like, hey, he's winning the Rumble next year. He's winning the title next year. Like, I think they knew it right. As I think that's the greatest wrestling match of all time. Man.
Hey, can I ask when we're getting when do we have an official date for the Tomlin Awards?
It'll probably be in December, most likely. I try to wait till as close to the end of the year as possible so that I try to have the whole year in the awards if possible.
Yeah, for sure. Have that track
I'll
record.
have to see, maybe like tribute to the troops is next year. I don't know what December is.
I don't think we're getting a December PLE because we got Bad Blood this weekend. We got
They
Crown
gotta have
Jewel beginning of
something
November.
They gotta have something between Survivor Series and the Rumble, though, right? Like
I don't think they do.
They did last year.
They did a long break last year, and they're doing it this year too.
Or no, well, last year the day one, right? Like
we got the New Year's Day day one thing.
Special, though, right? Yeah.
And there's Saturday night's main event too.
So maybe Saturday night's main event will just be how they bridge that then.
Probably.
But I was kind of hoping they would do like something in December. I was like, man, maybe like Armageddon. Would be cool.
That'd be cool.
Bring that back. Or Starrcade, man. Like that. How are we not using Starrcade, man? That was literally like the next biggest show after WrestleMania. You know, for like 2 decades, bro. Like they should be using Starrcade, man. They could make that a big show.
Maybe they're waiting for the right spot for that,
Or maybe instead of doing War Games at Survivor Series, they could bring back Starrcade and do it there.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I'd be.
But
down for that for sure.
It does. I do get War Games as a Survivor Series thing now. I get it. It makes sense.
I do like the 5-on-5 elimination thing. Don't get me wrong. I do enjoy that, but I do really like the War Game style too.
I kind of wish the War Game maybe they would do a War Games but with eliminations.
See, the thing is with the 5-on-5 elimination, don't make it every single fucking match of the Survivor Series card.
No, give me one
match for the men, do it one for the women, and just have it be done there.
Well, the match can be done well when there's stakes to it. Like when Sting debuted, and it was like the Authority all lose their job if they lose. Or whatever it was. That was cool.
Yeah, I really like that. If there's stakes, if there's something on the line, and as long as like the card isn't full of just Survivor Series elimination matches, then like I don't mind it. But whenever they would have just the Survivor Series matches, it would piss me off.
I'd almost be interested if they did because it's like the Raw versus SmackDown, whatever. Almost would like to throw on there too of like, all right, well, whoever wins, like the last person or 2 persons, or hell, if it's all 5, like you're all number 1 contenders, like. So then there's like maybe a little bit of distension within your own team as well. I would like that
Saturday
type of
night's
angle.
Main event is December 14th, so that must be the December PLE then. The Saturday night's main event.
Well, technically, it's not a PLE. It's going to be live. It's going to be airing on Peacock and NBC.
But it's still like the same thing.
It's like we're going like a level below, but it's still like a special event.
Yeah, it'll be a special, but
I'm sure they're gonna probably treat it just like a PLE. It'll just be.
Yeah.
So
the only difference is that it's gonna be 2 hours on TV.
Yeah, which will be fine. That just means they won't have to put in any filler matches. It'll just be like big matches, hopefully.
Yeah,
but they're putting it on TV, so they're gonna want to put on stuff that because their idea with this is obviously people who don't normally watch are gonna maybe accidentally slip onto this because it's on Channel 5.
I think that's the whole point too.
Yeah.
Get new fans that way.
You gotta have. So I would imagine, there's probably Cody will probably defend his title. I'm sure he'll still be the champion by then. Cody will probably defend his title. I can see that being a good spot because Damian Priest is bound to get his rematch at some point against Gunther. I just don't know when. Maybe they do it there. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of hard to tell. We're getting to the point of the year though where I'm going to start kind of narrowing down who could win the Rumble potentially. Right now. Early pick, Priest is who I'm leaning towards, but I want to see how the storylines progress going forward. So
for sure. Also, special event, Nick. When is your King of the Ring trivia starting?
It's gonna be starting on Monday next week.
Monday.
Since Raw's gonna be going from 2 hours, from 3 hours to 2 hours for the rest of the year.
So
then after when Raw's back on Netflix in January, then I'll figure out a different day probably.
This is more kind of not really my thing, but I was enjoying the reactions. Was Jey Uso getting the championship, and it seemed like majority of people were like salty, like how can you take the title off of Braun already? And then like, oh, Jey's just gonna lose it in a week, blah blah blah. And I was just like, I was so taken aback by how many people were like haters and hating on it. Like, I liked that he won because actually seeing titles exchange on Raw and SmackDown, if it's an actual possibility, you can enjoy the shows even more, and it makes it like for your casual fans, it makes it more you need to watch Raw or you need to watch SmackDown because anything could happen. He even said in the ring, like, Jay's been around for a while, and like Braun hasn't been here that long. Like, no one's gonna look back in like 5 years and go, man, that first title reign of Bronze, it was really shitty or it was really short. Like, we're all gonna forget about this because he's gonna be champion like a dozen times probably.
Yeah, and he's gonna have so many world title reigns, and he's gonna dominate. He's only like 26 or 27, so like he's got a long career ahead of him.
Like, Tomlin, weren't you salty about Jey winning?
No, why would I be salty about that? I love Jey.
Okay, I thought you were one of the ones that were like, what the hell? Why'd they do this?
I told Nick they did that because they've already seen enough with Braun as champion. They're gonna move him up. Like they don't. There's no reason to. Why have him hold a? Sorry if this offends anyone, but why have him hold a meaningless title? Nobody.
They've already teased him against Gunther already.
Yeah, they already teased that. I love that.
Let's not sit here and act like anyone cares about the Intercontinental title. They just pretend like they do when someone they like's holding it.
Yeah, this was something that I kind of gave Nick the cliff notes, and I'm gonna even see if I can remember this. But I also like that Jey has the title because, you know, down the road, eventually, when Roman comes a calling and wants, you know, Jey to join the bloodline, it makes it seem like Jey is a lot more legitimate if he's actually had a title, held the title, defended the title.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also kind of helps the storyline as well. If like him helping the bloodline actually cost him the title, it makes it more of like a sacrifice for the family or, you know, the bloodline or Roman or whatever. And my whole thing with however long this storyline goes or whatever, that if we somehow do eventually get to the point where Roman is like about to be crowned and he's about to get the
Fala.
Yes. Yeah, he's about to get crowned that, and Roman turns around and goes, you know what? Jey's the tribal chief. He's done it. He sacrificed for it. He deserves it. And then we get Roman off to Hollywood. Like, that's how I would probably end the whole Bloodline storyline.
I honestly could see the Bloodline story going for like another 5 years. There's so many layers to it. I mean, they could end that chapter of the Bloodline story with Roman and Jey and Jimmy, but there's so many other factors. There's Jacob. There's Hikuleo, who's coming in very soon. I believe he's going to be starting in NXT. I saw. Of course, you got the Tongans, Tongaloa, Tamatonga. You got possibly Zilla Fatu maybe in the next couple years. There's so many other relatives in that Bloodline story too that it's not going to just be completely done. It's going to be an ongoing thing for years. But to finish that chapter, absolutely 100%. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I don't know about 5 years, but I'll give you 5 years because there is so many family members, and like if you do a good enough job of putting them over, I could see that.
I mean,
but in terms of Roman,
they did it with Roman for 4.5 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say in terms of Roman, I don't know how much. Like, he's top of the game right now, and he's making all the money, but at the same time, like, he's kind of transitioning into that kind of John Cena role. I'll come back for the big stuff and to help maybe put some people over or tell a story and draw a crowd, but, like, I feel like he's on his way out to Hollywood, so I don't know how much more we got. I don't think we have another 5 years of Roman.
No, not. I don't think 5 years of Roman, maybe.
I'm not going to put a number on it. I'm just going to say, like, the Roman chapters of the Bloodline is going to end, and then there's going to be...
It's starting to dwindle a bit.
Yeah. We're going to transition into Book It. So, Nick, go ahead and book your card. I'll go ahead and give the matches real quick. So, officially, I believe we have 6. Because I was assuming that Sammy Gunther and that did officially get put on there, but it's not on the website.
Sammy Gunther is going to be next week on Raw.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay, so that's not official.
That just makes Raw more must watch.
Okay, but that's gonna be a title match.
Yep.
Okay, actually, that might make. I might have to adjust my card then, but because I wasn't sure if that was on there or not. All right, so the 5 matches we got. We got Liv vs. Rhea. Dom is in a shark cage. We have Nia vs. Bayley in a championship match. We have Finn Balor and Damian Priest. We have CM Punk vs. Drew in a Hell in a Cell. And then we have Cody and Roman versus Solo and Jacob. So go ahead and book your card, Nick.
All right. What I booked my card was I had Liv and Rhea opening the show. You know, just to have that extra flair to begin the PLE, especially with Dom up top in the shark cage. It's just going to make everything more enjoyable, and the crowd's going to feel more alive. So I think it's a great way to start the show that way. Second match, I have Balor and Priest. I got back-to-back Judgment Day feud matches going here. I'll get into my reasoning after like we talk about like who we think is gonna win or whatever. I got Nia Jackson Bailey going third for the women's championship. I would have put it second, but I think there's gonna be some funny business going on there. And I have Cody and Roman versus Jacob and Solo going fourth, and I got Punk and Drew in the main event in the Hell in a Cell match.
Okay. Tomlin, what do you got?
I think it'll probably be Don or the Liv and Rhea match kicking it off, most likely. But Drew, I could see Punk and Drew going on second relatively early in the show, just simply because it's not going last. And then after that, Priest and Balor, and then they'll take a slight break because I don't think they're going to do Rhea and Priest's match back to back. So I think they'll probably do then after Damian and Balor, they'll use Nia and Bailey as a little piss break before the main event, which obviously the main event's going to be that tag match.
We all kind of agree on the first one. I kind of looked at it more as logistically, like because the shark cage, you got to get them in, and I think usually they're like hung up top. So like for me, I'm like,
yeah,
they need to make sure that is set and good and safe. So that'll be the first thing done and out of the way. I feel like I think the last, I don't know if it's the last two or whatever, but like I know the last one we had, Liv and Rhea also started off the show, and I felt like it went over well.
Yeah, that was SummerSlam.
So yeah, I had them starting off the show as well. I thought we had Sammy versus Gunther, and I mean maybe we get a DQ and they throw it on here, but I doubt it now. I actually had them going second because I don't like having the Judgment Day matches basically back to back. I feel like that kind of like they've already basically combined the storylines, which is why I'm not as invested in them as I should be. I'll probably go into that more later. But without that, I almost have to do back-to-backs because Liv and Rhea starts, then I do Finn and Damian. Then I was going with Nia versus Bailey for the championship match. Again, I don't want my women's titles back-to-back, so I feel like we need something in between. So whether those flip or not, it kind of whatever. The biggest question for me was, ending in Hell in a Cell or ending in a tag match, but I feel like we're going to get storyline stuff afterwards with Cody, Roman, or KO even. So I feel like that's going to go on last because it's going to leave us with that whole now we got to tune into Raw and SmackDown to find out what's happening next. Like that's kind of the way that, it should be, honestly. So then that kind of puts the Hell in a Cell match right before it.
So my first winner, I got Rhea regaining the Women's World Championship from Liv Morgan. I think she's finally going to get her full-on revenge. Hence the match at Bad Blood. I guess it kind of does have a stipulation. It has Dom in the shark cage, but I do have Rhea winning this match, regaining the championship. I think it's going to be a good match. Of course, Dominic Mysterio can't get involved, so I think that's obviously puts Liv as a very bad disadvantage. So I think Rhea's going to reclaim her championship. And the reason I have Balor and Priest second is the Judgment Day is probably going to come out after the match. And I assume that they're probably going to be ringside for Balor. And then after the match is over, Balor's going to make his entrance, come down to the ring with the rest of the Judgment Day already there. And then since Rhea and Liv are already down at ringside, I feel like they would just stay there as Damian comes down, and Rhea's also going to be down there as well. And I feel like they'll have the LWO or someone like that as backup to kind of match the rest of the Judgment Day for the Balor-Priest match. Ultimately, I have Balor going over for Damian Priest because I don't think this is going to be the end of their feud. And then I have Nia Jax going over on Bailey. I don't think Nia's WWE Women's Championship reign is going to be over until Tiffany Stratton cashes in. I think that's been very apparent as to where they're going the past couple of months, adding Tiffany Stratton with Nia Jax. As for Cody and Roman and Jacob and Solo, I got Cody and Roman winning the match and going over Jacob and Solo. And for the main event, or for my main event, my fantasy booked main event, I got Punk winning over Drew.
I'm like split in the middle between the Liv and the Rhea thing. So like I could see it going either way. I don't think I would like it though if after that match they stayed down there though, because then like I almost feel like in a way I almost feel like that like disrespects the women's title match. That's like I don't know, like you got to sell I feel like the match. Like if Liv's going to get a beat down, she's not going to stay out there. She's going to go in the back, rest up and go, see the trainer or get, rehab or whatever she needs to get healed. And I feel like if Rhea's gonna win the championship or whatever, like she needs to have her moment on the stage where she's like, I got the championship, it's mine, you know, like the celebration. I don't like the back-to-backs, but again, I kind of booked it that way as well. I feel like you have to save like the Judgment Day dudes to coming out, and I'm kind of assuming they're gonna use it for the Priest thing. So I'm hoping that the first match is like clean, and it's just like we get some weird Dom shenanigans, and that's it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Tomlin, what do you think?
I think Rhea's gonna win title back. I think that Rhea's gonna retain, and then Tiffany will probably tease cash in, but probably won't. I think if Drew should beat CM Punk, I'm honestly not sure how they're gonna go with that. I can see that one going either way. I really don't.
Yeah, it's a big 50-50.
I think that if they're smart, Drew would win, but we'll see what happens there. I think that Finn Balor's gonna win with help, most likely. I think the whole point right now is they're probably gonna have a long build of Priest working his way back up the card. Because I don't know if Priest will win the Rumble, but I think him potentially winning the Rumble is going to be one of the storylines going into it, though, I would imagine. They could be starting the arc of like, oh, you know, Priest's having a rough last couple months, blah, 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 blah. You know, that type of shit they do. And then I think, obviously, that Cody and Roman are going to win the main, and I would be shocked if they in it. Unless The Rock gets involved. That would be the one.
Yeah,
that would be exciting.
Too. Yeah.
Now, if The Rock gets involved, then Roman and Cody are probably going to lose. But
I had not thought of that, actually. Because
I hear you.
You know, like...
Well, The Rock's got to be back at any time now. I mean, we're getting at the end of the year. It can't be that much longer until he's back at this point.
It would fit because, like, you know, his stuff with Roman and Cody, and they're in the ring at the same time. That would make sense.
Yeah,
like, I wouldn't be mad at that.
Well, and The Rock in storyline can feel betrayed by Roman.
And that's how it started, Roman.
So I do think it's going to get revealed that The Rock has been calling the shots for Solo the whole time. I think that will probably be revealed.
I think they would tease it at the PLE, and then maybe on SmackDown it's like, and The Rock's gonna show up and cut, and then he reveals it. Let me ask you this, Nick, because you did kind of call the KO dissension with Cody stuff. Do you think any of that stuff shows up or butts its head, possibly cost them the match? Have you thought about it?
I've thought about it a lot, and I'm gonna say no, but this is why.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it happens yet. Because I think eventually, since Jey Uso won the Intercontinental Championship and Jimmy Uso hasn't returned yet, I don't think they're going to do Bloodline versus Bloodline at War Games. I think they're going to do Cody, Randy, KO, and I don't know who else. Somebody else is going to join that.
Kevin cost them the match.
Or KO attacks them after the match because they lost to the
Loses
Bloodline.
his shit finally.
Well, I think the real swerve would be them if Randy was the one to turn, but I think Randy's so over as a face right now. I don't think they want to do that. That's
same.
They're going to do that.
Because
I agree with you.
You know, we've had this
Randy's really over.
Yeah, and they're singing his song every single week too. So like,
he's enjoying himself.
No, they're not going to kill that.
Yeah, he's fully enjoying himself. Like I agree. I would love to see him heal, but it would be too hard to do it right now.
Yeah, it's got to be KO to turn. I think it's going to be either during the War Games match. Or it's going to be after the War Games match. He's going to be so pissed at Cody because Cody's going to be the one that takes the pin. Or Roman's the one that takes the pin. And KO was told by Cody to trust Roman or whatever. And that just completes the dissension of KO going into Madness.
I'll go ahead and do my booking then. So I have Liv winning over Rhea. I know I felt like kind of a dead horse, but I'm trying to think of somebody else that has like bad blood with Rhea that could return. Like I've said Raquel so many times, I feel like I've lost any chances that could happen or something. But I was even thinking like, what if like Becky showed up for whatever reason and like attacked Liv, and so like technically Rhea wins, but Liv retains the title. Like I feel like some shenanigans like that, like Dom's gonna somehow find a way to like give Liv a weapon or something that he's like hiding in his trunks. Whatever happens, it's gonna be one of those where Liv super cheats to win her title, or she DQs somehow, so she like loses the match but keeps the title. So I think
I could see that.
And then, but I'm also kind of like, to me, Bad Blood is like the PLE that kind of needs to end a lot of these feuds. At least that's how I kind of view it. And then we could start this like next wave, next chapter or whatever, as especially as like all these shows are kind of changing networks and such. So I would like somebody to show up. I don't know if it's I'll give it like a 25% chance, but I would like somebody to show up and like go after Rhea. So then Rhea has something else to do, because she is over, fans love her, she's a face, but like kind of, and I think Tom will agree with me with the whole like baby faces are better chasing and heels are better champions. Like I know you're not the biggest like Liv fan or anything like that, but like I would much rather have Rhea have these other side programs, and then she's one of the favorites at the Rumble. Like I would much rather have that. So that's kind of how I'm booking that. You guys have actually, I don't want to say convinced me, but made me think more about it, because I was just kind of, the way that they've booked this whole like Finn Balor versus Damian Priest thing. Like honestly, I think over the last 2 weeks of Raw, we've gotten like, I think one kind of double promo from Judgment Day, and then Priest has got like 2 backstage pre-recorded, segments that we really haven't gotten much for me to get that excited about this. Like, I feel like this should have been booked a lot better and a lot differently. Again, I'm not as big into Priest as like Tomlin is. This is the one match that I'm actually not looking forward to like the least. The last pay-per-view or whatever, they basically made Judgment Day look like a bunch of jobbers. So like if I have a snack break or whatever, this is probably my snack break match. But I kind of just expect Damian Priest wins, Judgment Day gets like tossed from the building or whatever, so Priest can handle his own business. And like I think LWO or whoever comes out as well, or one of those dudes that have kind of been helping him, like they can show up and they can kind of be the backup before they all get tossed. Priest wins clean, and we can kind of like move on down different paths. If we want to readdress this later, like then let's make this a Rumble match, or like you can make it a Mania match if you really have nothing else for Priest to do. But I feel like Finn at this point in his career is just kind of here to put people over and get people like paid by getting them on TV. Like I'm a big fan of his, but I think he's kind of like the AJ Styles at this point, where he's like been there, done that. Like I'm just kind of here having a good time and to help others get over. So I just assume Priest is going to win clean. So then I got Nia versus Bayley. We've kind of gone over this before. Like I'm not the biggest Nia fan, but she has actually kind of improved, and like her ring work I feel like has also gotten better. Like she's got more moves and her matches last longer and everything like that. But like we are all kind of tired of seeing Bayley in championship matches. I actually was hoping that Naomi would win and that Bayley somehow was the one that got pinned and got moved. Or if she wasn't, like Naomi like turned, but we didn't get any of that. So the only thing that this thing holds any excitement for me is that little segment on SmackDown where Nia was like kind of chewing out Tiffany and like bullying her in a sense, almost, where she was just like, you keep failing and messing everything up. And I can't remember all that was said, but I think do you guys know what promo I'm talking about on SmackDown?
Yeah, I know what promo you're talking about. I can't remember word for word.
And like she like choked her ass out. Like she was choking her, and then she like let go and like left and didn't like apologize or anything. And Tiffany had that look of like, oh no you didn't, bitch. Like that's fucked up. Why am I like I don't need to take this. And so I actually think, and I put this in my picking too with an asterisk, that I think Bayley wins somehow, some way, but Tiffany comes out, cashes in, pins Bayley, whether it's after the match, maybe she pulls a Seth Rollins and does it during the match, and then Nia's kind of like down on the outside, like, what the fuck just happened? And she technically loses that like rematch type of thing too, because Bayley already lost. So if anyone deserves the rematch, it would be Bayley. You know what I mean? Like, you know how they kind of do that sometimes? I
could see the triple threat thing happening for sure. And then having Tiffany pin Bayley.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then Tiffany and Nia have a program.
Yeah. In a sense, like, I feel like they're booking Nia super strong. So that gives her kind of an out to lose the championship. And then she can always, get back in Tiffany's face and they can have their program. Because I feel like while Tiffany, I feel like, is almost kind of like the female Braun Breaker situation right now. Like kind of came up, booked him as a heel, kind of booked him as like arrogant bully types or whatever. But like the crowd actually likes them. So now like creative's kind of like, okay, like Braun, they're already barking for him. Maybe we got to make him face. I feel like so the way that they're kind of doing this to make Tiffany face is by having Nia treat her like shit and us feel like sympathizing with Tiffany about how she's being treated. Because I think when she does cash in, like everyone marks out when, it's Tiffy time and she runs down the ring. So this is my time in the match or whatever, or time in the year or whatever, where I actually see Tiffany cashing in, being successful. Because like we were talking before with the schedule too, like, all right, so we got Crown Jewel coming up, and then we kind of have like the mini special events, the Saturday night and the day one, and then it's Rumble season. So you can kind of give her that time period or whatever, and if she's doing well, okay, maybe she holds on to the title into Mania. If she's not doing well, book her into a program or have some way where she loses at the Rumble, and then boom. But you basically need her to have, unless you're going to do another cash in at WrestleMania, which, great, that's fun, but I'm almost like, if we keep doing this, it's not going to be as exciting. It's going to become expected. So I'm like, have her cash in now at this Bad Blood. Give her that short run. If it's successful, great. If it's not, okay, we tried it. We got the briefcase kind of handled, we had fun, we got that out of the way. So that's the only reason why to me this match is like not the least exciting, is because I think we got a legit cash in chance.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Plus like the possible Naomi heel turn on, like, maybe Naomi comes out during the match, gets jealous of Bayley almost winning it, distracts her, attacks her, something like that, turns heel, Nia retains or something like that, because like I feel like that's going to happen. We didn't see that at Bash or Billin like we anticipated that, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's something that's going to happen very soon, because we need something else for Bayley while Tiffany and Nia have like their little side quests going on.
Yeah.
And I think it's the perfect thing to do, because Naomi was actually a pretty good heel when she was a part of Team Bad in 2014 and 2015. So I think it could honestly work. So that's another reason why I think the Nia and Bayley match isn't the piss break of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree with you that Finn Balor Priest is probably the least interesting match on the card.
I mean, kind of to, I guess, compound onto what you said too, like, if you really wanted to, like, include Naomi a little bit more, then it'd be super easy to be like, all right, Tiffany joins on ringside, Naomi joins Bayley ringside, and then they're already kind of there, so they can kind of tease and flirt this stuff before it actually happens as well. Like, I'd be on board with that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's why I don't want to miss this match. I think something's gonna happen. Then I have the Hell in a Cell match. If we do get the cash in, we're gonna have that kind of excitement or whatever of like her on stage or whatever doing her thing. Meanwhile, we can get the cage set up. So like this is, again, logistically, it kind of makes sense. Clean up whatever, start getting the cage down, cut the promo on TV, so you have that extra time. Again, I'm kind of split on how they want to book this, but for me, like, I'm with Tomlin on this. I think Drew needs to win, because like CM Punk is so over and like so mainstream or whatever. Does it really hurt him if he loses? Not really. He'll still be there. He'll still be a main event card. He can still ask for a title if he wants it. But Drew, I believe he's a main eventer. Like, if we did our little tier things, he's a main eventer to me. But if he wins this, he actually can be like, I beat CM Punk. I've beat all these other dudes. I'm now your number one contender. And I would love to see a Gunther versus Drew. Like, we got that awesome triple threat with Sheamus involved at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. Give me Drew versus Gunther. And like, and if it's in Crown Jewel, it's kind of like, international. So then, you kind of have Gunther, I guess, could kind of almost play the face again kind of thing. I don't know. But I would just love that slobber knocker.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, this rivalry kind of needs to end, and if it doesn't, and then it needs to take like 2 wide turns away from each other, and then maybe they can come back together for a title, contenders or something like that. But
I really hope that it's the end, though.
Yeah, I think we all kind of hope that at this point. And then the last one with the Cody versus Roman versus Solo and Jacob. How SmackDown with the ladder match happens, I feel like will indicate who might be the interference, because I think we're gonna end up getting your tag team bloodline guys showing up that get run off by, whether it's the Street Profits or it's KO and Orton, or if it's DIY, whatever, like they'll get run off, so then it's just a legit tag team match. I think it could end up being one of those like anything you can do I can do better So like
Yeah.
maybe Cody does a spear or Roman does a crossroads, and like some of that cockiness almost cost them the match. But then at like the last second, like Solo tries a cheap shot or something, and like Cody has Roman's back, and then vice versa, Jacob does something, but like Roman has Cody's back, and eventually you kind of get that, go home happy. Cody Roman won, but then after the match, like we get some type of tease, whether it's The Rock or whether it is like KO shows up and comes back and starts to like side eye Cody again, or like hits Roman with the chair. Like I would love to see KO get involved somewhere. And if not,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed either if like this is the spot where like Jimmy shows up, whether it's to interfere at all or just like literally just shows up at the end and like gives Roman a hug or something. Like I don't have a great storyline for the Jimmy thing, but like I wouldn't be opposed to some type of Jimmy showing up, whether it's even if it was like backstage or something.
I think Jimmy would show up with Paul Heyman if anything.
We're rolling into our elimination picks. I'm not confident in like any of my picks this week, and I can't choose Braun or Gunther. You guys both picked Finn to win, and I picked Priest to win. So Priest is who I'm going for my elimination pick, but I do not feel confident in it at all. Not anymore.
Well, this week's actually really easy for me because they've never tagged up before, and they probably never will again. So I'm going to go with Roman and Cody for my eliminator pick.
I was gonna go with Roman and Cody too, but then
it's almost
then
a
I saw
cheat code,
mine.
but it's
Yeah.
almost a cheat.
See,
It's
for
almost
yeah.
cheating, but
For me-
but all jokes aside, I'm like 100% confident that I think they're going to
Yeah.
win. So
I think
that's why I'm going with that.
I think they'll win too, but for me, it would be so much more interesting if Solo and Jacob won, because then they could give them the fight
I mean,
afterwards.
they could.
You know,
They
like
could win.
to me that inkling is still there. Whether it's it would be boring to just be like, okay, it's a numbers game, and the boys all the other bloodline members show up and beat their ass, and like that's what happens. Like, okay, whatever. Like, I feel like that's an episode of SmackDown. I'd be a little disappointed by that. If it's the cockiness and the who's better, me or you versus Cody and Roman happens, I'd be okay with that. As like, okay, the ego is why you guys lost, and then it also could, if they want to down the road, that would be a good little build up to the War Games match of like, can they get on the same page this time? If they did team up. If Roman and Cody are gonna win, who gets the pin? Solo?
Yeah, I'd have to say Jake. Shit,
It
that's
just
a hard
depends.
choice.
I don't really know if that matters too much because it'll be dirty anyways if they win. So
It'll be
Yeah.
it'll be dirty if Cody and Roman win.
no, I'm saying for Solo and Jacob, if they win, I don't think it matters who gets the pin because it's gonna be dirty if they win.
Okay, if Roman and Cody lose, I think Cody's probably gonna get the pin.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what happened in the 6-man tag at Money in the Bank. And Cody's also said on Twitter, I believe it was today, he said that the main event has major championship implications. So I wouldn't be surprised if Solo and Jacob did win against Roman and Cody. Cody would be the one to take the L, and Roman would just be out on the outside. Plus, that would lead into the story that Cody wanted Roman to have his back, and if Roman is
And
knocked
didn't.
out on the outside, exactly.
The only thing about picking Cody Roman is you can't pick them again, so you're kind of wasting them in this.
Yeah, so I can't pick. I picked Cody last week.
Yeah,
last
you picked
episode.
Cody,
I can't-
Nick. Yeah.
So for mine, I'm going with Nia. I will say this whole Bad Blood PLE, except for like the Balor and Priest, is very up in the air. Like it's very 50-50, except for Balor and Priest. I think it's pretty clear that Balor's gonna win that match, and everything else is just like a toss-up. But I'm gonna go with Nia
Okay.
because I think ultimately still that I think Tiffany's gonna be the one to cash in on Nia. Eventually, Nia's just gonna keep rolling through the competition. Tiffany's just gonna increasingly get more and more pissed off at Nia,
Mm-hmm.
and then she'll eventually snap and cash in on Nia Jax at some point.
Yeah, I could see the like more of the slower build up, but for me it kind of just comes down to like the time of the year. So
Yeah.
is she gonna cash in at the Rumble? Like it, I don't, it's like I said, if it cashes in at WrestleMania, it's like, God, how many are we gonna keep doing this every year? Like, and then it's like, all right, well, is she gonna hold on to it even longer? Like, I'm cool with them holding on to the briefcase for a long time, but there is it does get to a point where it's like, all right, how many failed cash-ins are we gonna have? Like, it's kind of like lost its excitement.
Yeah.
So just timing wise, I feel like Bad Blood's the time to do it. I think this is the only major, like the last two ones that we've done, I felt like, no, I'm pretty sure this person's gonna win, and if it doesn't, I'll be disappointed, and then I'm like disappointed. Where this one, I'm like 50-50.